I remember that I was like so frustrated. We already decided to move out, but we didn't have any place to move. And I remember the exact place in Copenhagen where it was when I was walking, and I had this epiphany where I felt that it was very unjust that I have to move out and that I have to carry the burden because it's not like actually me. But I felt that I have to take the responsibility for it, and I took the decision that I will. I remember that I was praying there, even though I was like just walking on the street, but I was saying some prayers. And it was a moment when in this horrible situation, I experienced some sort of light or hope and then some sort of divine support. It's very hard to explain what happened there, but I remember that moment. It's hard for me to pinpoint the beginning of it, but I was always interested in the matters of spirituality. I was a fighting atheist in my late teens or early 20s about non-existence of God. And then when I was about 25, I started to read guys like Sam Harris and John Kabat-Zinn. After a couple of years, I came to Denmark and I got into tantra through this spiritual but not religious community. And I guess that at that point, I was sort of glorifying exploration, or like I was seeking experiences, and perhaps my moral compass was a little foggy or something. It was sort of liberating for me because the reason that I got into Tantra was that I had a couple of experiences in my life before coming to Denmark that made me feel bad about myself or about the whole situation. I was like, this is shit, like this is wrong. And then when I came to Denmark, I decided like, okay, I have to straighten out my life. And shortly afterwards, I found out David Deida and I got into reading his books. And then there were new things coming up again and again. So I got kind of trapped in my own pleasure seeking, my desire or passions, as you call it. I think that maybe it was the EMG when Jonathan Pajot was there. His speech made quite an impact on me, and also the talks that we've been having in Maniphesto with you and the other guys about religion and spirituality, and the discussions that you had with Bard and Thomas Hamelrück. And then it accelerated after you invited Father Hans for the talk. It was also inspiring, and then I had a private call with him, and that was definitely another step closer. I don't think I was actively looking for God, but I was making a foundation for it or preparing myself. And then there was the EMG 1.5 years ago, where I remember that at that point I was still very much in this tantric world and in this chaos of my relationship. And maybe that was why I was looking for some help or some sort of way out of it. And that was where I was actively looking for God. And I remember that there was some question about the quest or what is your mission or something like that. And I said that my biggest quest now is to find God. And I asked the audience to wish me luck. And saying it out loud in front of the audience was definitely one of the crucial moments. I don't think that I was actually conscious of the fact that I'm really looking for God. Only when I said it, I was like, wow. I was surprised that it came out of me. And then I remember that when I spoke with Father Hans, he said that, if you want to find God, you just start praying. And even if you think in the beginning that you are talking to yourself, it doesn't matter, just keep doing it. And I was already praying at that point. A year ago, I started to go to the Polish church in Copenhagen. And then I spoke to the priest and I took my first confession. It was around that time when we moved out in the spirit of drama, and the conflict was sort of a long-term thing, like under the skin, but it somehow come out to the surface. And there was like a day when it exploded out of nowhere. All of a sudden we had like a huge fight. And I remember that I felt very overwhelmed and trapped in this situation. I went for a very long walk to the city, and it's very hard to say what happened there. But I remember that I was like so frustrated. We already decided to move out, but we didn't have any place to move. And I remember the exact place in Copenhagen where it was when I was walking, and I had this epiphany where I felt that it was very unjust that I have to move out and that I have to carry the burden because it's not like actually me. But I felt that I have to take the responsibility for it, and I took the decision that I will. I remember that I was praying there, even though I was like just walking on the street, but I was saying some prayers. And it was a moment when in this horrible situation, I experienced some sort of light or hope and then some sort of divine support. It's very hard to explain what happened there, but I remember that moment. From there, we moved out from the collective, and I was still going to the Polish church. She was actually going with me then. But then shortly after, I took the decision to break up with her and to leave Denmark. And when I came here in May, I was looking for a church, and I think that I found a good one. And it seems like a paradox, because coming back to faith for me now is both a relief and a burden at the same time. And the relief part is that it's like I have a manual for life, or like an instruction of what to do and what to not do. And if I tune into my conscience, I can feel what is good and what is not good. And at the same time, it's a burden because there's so many little things that I feel that I could do better, even from the small things that I come back home from a day of work and I sit on the couch and I start start swiping through the internet, it's like, I feel bad about it. But when I confess, the muscle of conscience is getting stronger, and I realize these things more and earlier. The funny thing is now I'm having arguments with my parents lately. Like, I used to be the atheist and now I'm the sort of hardcore Catholic. I'm getting closer to other ones though, especially in the church. I'm joining now the guys who help the priest in the service. On Saturday I'm going for a training to start participating in the service. And for me, sometimes they are a little bit hardcore. But as I said before, I somehow feel at home there, even though I disagree with some of the things they say.